Hey guys. Philip, let me know when I should start, please. Okay, cool. So, hey guys. I don't know if Philip has done an introduction to me, but I'll introduce myself. My name is Joshua Bate, and I'm the founder of DeSci World. And I'm just going to do a short presentation now to sort of introduce you to DeSci, some of the things that we're currently working on in DeSci, some of the challenges that we're facing, and what, in my mind and the DeSci World, we believe is going to push DeSci forward and into the mainstream. So before I start, has anybody been working in DeSci before that's in the room? No. Is anybody in the room a scientist? No. Okay, good. Yeah, some half scientists apparently. Okay, so I'll just start with the presentation straight away here. Okay. Second. That should be okay, yeah? Great. So this is an introduction to DeSci from the DeSci World perspective, okay? Philip, just message me quickly saying that you can see this, please, as my screen is taken. Okay, good now? Okay, this is an introduction to DeSci. What is DeSci? I think you may have already heard a little bit about what is DeSci, but here's another definition from the Ethereum website itself. So DeSci is a movement that aims to build public infrastructure for a variety of things, so funding, creating, etc., and disseminating the scientific knowledge fairly and equitably. Here, specifically and importantly, is using the Web3 stack. So the Web3 stack being blockchain, in this case in particular, Ethereum. So what can DeSci achieve? And this is for the whole space, and this is what DeSci World is hoping to help the space get towards. So right now, scientific innovation is severely hampered by a lot of reasons, and things including misaligned incentives. So people's incentives being aligned to do the science that is required by industry or institutions, for example, rather than the science that is directly contributing to massive innovation. For example, open source science sets generally achieve larger parameters of innovation, but because they are hampered by, for example, proprietary knowledge, IP, institutional restraints, it's very difficult for this innovation to flourish. So misaligned incentives and selective funding, the ability for people to decide what funding should be done, institutional constraints, as mentioned, and accessibility concerns, things such as accessing data sets of a particular type, coordinating with existing scientists who are working within their own sort of silos. All of these factors hamper scientific innovation. And so DeSci proposes a solution to this by decentralizing the science and academic fields using blockchain technologies to, in particular, remove gatekeepers, open up funding, and improve the access or diversity of opportunity. Here's a brief sort of logo doc with some examples of the ecosystem building right now. If you've been familiar with DeSci, you will recognize a number of these projects. You have projects here building in all fields of science. So you have, for example, here, HairDAO is funding research into hair loss. We have Genomes DAO, which is doing genomic research. We have synthetic biology here. We have a blockchain for publishing. We have Web3 Women in Science, which is an advocacy DAO for women in science. Patient-led care here. You have longevity here. You have decentralized GitHub here. All of these projects are individually building something which is in the field of science, but utilizing specifically Web3 and the decentralized technology stack. You can actually view a lot of these projects on our website at DeSci.world. After this call, you can go through our dashboard and you can see all kinds of projects there. So what is actually standing in the way of DeSci as a movement and getting to this point where it becomes the dominant scientific model? So we believe that the DeSci community is still very early, very nascent, and thus very disorganized. In science in particular, the organization of peers, the organization of knowledge is very, very important. So the fact that it is so disorganized, or so early in fact, is one of the main things standing in DeSci. Great. belief in the technology of the Web3 technology in particular is pretty shaky when it comes to existing scientists or institutional academia. Whether or not the tech is actually valuable or more efficient is still kind of undecided. So because of these things, adoptions from institutions is still some ways off. And one thing that caps off this whole experience is that that includes crypto, DAOs, DeFi, all these things. They all run through the same ecosystem, right? Through the wallet address plugin. You then trade your crypto tokens, you use them to vote, etc. This is an experience that across the whole of Web3 still needs to be improved a lot. The user experience needs to be improved quite a lot to onboard those next, 100 million crypto users. It's infrastructure, a lot of wallet login, a lot of cringes. And so this needs to be improved a lot to onboard those new clients. So the flip side of this is that we can utilize DeSci to push forward. In order to push forward DeSci, we can utilize the tools around us to improve organization amongst separate peers within DeSci, from the outside of DeSci. We can use these decentralized top technologies to inspire belief in those projects and in those peers. See what science can be done, see what funding you can get, see how empowered your work can become using this tech stack. Once we have the people and we have the sort of inspiration, the tech stack, then we can provide these economically viable use cases for scientists. If you're actually, if you're a patient and you're getting paid to leverage your data sets, your health data, for example, then it improves massively on the experience that you have traditionally, which is to just give your data to a doctor or to the medical institution, and most of that data is siphoned off. Well, here you can actually potentially, for example, change the incentive structure here so that your data can be leveraged for your own benefit. And throughout all of this process of taking that technology and making those use cases, we have to improve the user experience to onboard new scientists. The things like what Philip is doing today with the DeSci Belgrade community is perfectly example of this, improving the user experience and on the onboarding journey. Real world spaces with real world speakers talking about DeSci. So DeSci World, we think there's 4 core pillars of the DeSci sort of stack, as we call it. So you have the organization, the inspiration, the use cases, and the onboarding. So here in the organization, we think that the advent of DAOs has contributed to the distribution of communities like never before. And this is especially powerful in the DeSci community, in the scientific community, because you have lots of disparate groups of scientists working around the world who are often not trading information, not sharing resources. And a DAO makes this much more simple because all DAOs are built on this uniform structure with these wallet logins, with these tokenizations. And this unifies the whole thing. So you can actually work together with DAOs around the world using a common infrastructure. You could use this common infrastructure to govern your protocol, for example, using tokens, NFTs, these membership tokens, which can then govern access to the resources or to vote on the proposals to fund certain science, for example. You can utilize the same tech stack to manage your treasury. And this is really important because DeFi has spent the last sort of 3 to 4 years developing itself and becoming quite powerful. Scientists can now utilize that DeFi toolset within their own sort of research, within their own sort of treasuries for their own projects. And this is really powerful for the individuals. Likewise, the tokens with creating your own funds, for example, you can change the incentive mechanisms for scientists and for organizations to be involved into DeSci. Again, healthcare industry is ripe for disruption with the data management systems that you could then provide different incentives for people to work within your system so they can get better kickbacks for their data provision or for the work that they do, or that the training they receive is much more decentralized, for example. And this all leads to much more collaboration between the scientists within the organizations and between the organizations themselves. That includes institutions like universities, for example. So all of these things are quite exciting for scientists because it's very new, right? And DeSci has not only the potential to revolutionize science, but also the experience for academia and for researchers. And this is something that we're trying to communicate at DeSci World, and hopefully you guys can start to see also. So DeSci, through this common framework, through this sort of ability to share resources and networks, it reduces the gatekeeping and elitism that has plagued science up until now. So at DeSci World, we're really trying to foster a global audience, and that's why we came to Belgrade earlier this year, start up a DeSci community, and it's great to see it keep going. The idea also of using this common infrastructure, in particular those incentives, those tokens, to earn a fair share for your science is really inspiring for lots. Likewise, accessing restricted resources, treatments, or knowledge can not only change the game for global audience, but for those within each individual country that have access to different knowledge. For example, in the UK, where I'm from, we have Oxford, Cambridge, and Imperial College London, which is kind of like this triangle of sort of intellectual capital in the UK. Very difficult to get access to certain parts of the lab, certain parts of the research from this sort of triangle. And the idea that you might be able to sort of decentralize that amongst the UK is, for us in particular, quite an interesting thing. So this can be sort of played out on a global scale. And this last point here is something that I think is quite powerful about DeSci. This gives you the ability to pursue your own truth, right? To pursue your own thoughts about what is happening in the world around me. You have an interesting point about the change of the magnetic poles of the Earth, and something that's not currently accepted by academia. Then you could go ahead and research this, look for funding, get access to resources and data sharing, and you can actually pursue your own truth in a much more simple way than you could before in the traditional sort of academic institutional infrastructure. And this is sort of where builders, DeSci projects in particular, will come in. And this is where most of the experience for people contributing to DeSci, building a business in DeSci, for example, most of that will come through here, which is the use cases. You take the infrastructure, you take this sort of ethos, the concepts that we're talking about, and you turn them into real product, utilizing, for example, the blockchain, for example, Solidity code, or some kind of other infrastructure that is not directly based on the blockchain but interacts with DeSci. These are all the use cases that a lot of people are building right now. And while some projects are still early stages, in the next sort of 2 to 6 to 12 months, you'll see a lot of these projects building in these areas, starting to get some traction, to get some real usage from experimental scientists, from those experimental departments in innovative places like certain universities. And even, for example, big pharma companies have started to invest through DeSci, for example, Pfizer. So these are some use cases, right? And these use cases are what is necessary to bring everybody to this space. You have publishing, so you can sort of create new publishing platforms where scientists can get different incentives for publishing. They can get better sort of referencing or citing. The provenance of their research is much more powerful. Allows you maybe to sort of directly collaborate with other scientists, or for example, DeSci Labs has produced a project that allows you to publish all of your code, all of your data sets, all of your everything as actionable files on your PDF that you published, the PDF and all of your actionable files. So it makes reproducibility much more powerful. Here, data sharing, it's blockchain in general, right? Blockchain is a data platform. So it's open access, it's traceable, it's powerful, it's efficient, it's decentralized, it's immutable. We know all of these words. And funding in particular is quite an exciting thing for early stage scientists. In DeSci, you have access to the decentralized funding infrastructure through DeFi, through Ethereum. And you might, you can create sort of use cases whereby DeSci projects can put up bounties or funding proposals, and you can get yourself potential funding for your early stage research. For me personally, I believe that DeSci is actually the most salient use case for blockchain technologies. And in the coming sort of year to 2-3 years, I think DeSci is going to become the space that receives the most amount of attention and potentially the most amount of capital over the coming years. It's one of those use cases that it's very easy for people to understand how powerful it can be. So all of these things combined, what we are working on at DeSci World now is this onboarding factor, right? Trying to make DeSci accessible, trying to make science accessible, trying to make Web3 accessible. And we do that for a number of things, such as education, our creativity and design. When we're designing our platform, when we're designing our talks, when we're designing our conferences, we do so with the idea of inspiring a new way of thinking about science and academia. Collaborating with existing institutions is a must. In DeFi, you might want to replace the banks, but in DeSci, you can't replace the institutions without working with them. It's the next stage. We don't have to exclude those before. And finally, ambition is something we want to instill into the space and to you guys. We want you to come away from this and think DeSci is the best place to be for the next 10 years as a practicing scientist or as an interested Web3 investor. And we want you to go forward and think about how to get involved into this space. Just a bit about DeSci World here. We have a number of core products. In particular, we have some information aggregation on our dashboard, on our terminal. If you have any sort of interest in being listed or spoken about on our platform, please reach out to us. We have a launch pad for NFTs. If you want to launch your first DeSci NFT, you can come and talk to us, and we can help with contract building and the minting. We also do consultation and education, like things like this, opportunities to tell people what's happening in DeSci. And we're actually building out a platform for peer-to-peer interactions for research funding and assistance and sharing resources. that's everything. I really appreciate the time. Thank you very much, Philip, for all the time. These guys contact me if you want to chat with scanning the QR code on the right here, and we have a link tree here on the left with some more statistics about DeSci World.
Okay, I don't have any questions to Josh. Send it to the Telegram. Cool.
Yeah, I will have later some questions about this.
Are you texting me something? Yes, you are. Okay, cool. My camera has frozen, by the way, on my screen. So if I've frozen in a weird space, apologies for that. No questions for now. Okay, great. Look, guys, again, please scan the QR code on the right. Give me a text on Telegram. Say hi. And thank you very much for listening. And cheers again, Philip.
Possibly through the presentation, so feel free to raise your hand or say something, or if you don't understand anything or have any question, just interrupt me. So, okay? Okay. I can go on? Cool. Okay, so I'm here a little bit to tell you about everything that's possible within the realm of healthcare and medicine within the DeSci ecosystem. And this subject here generally just represents first my personal journey, how I got interested to actually get invested into DAOs, even though I have been in the beginning interested in working in laboratories. And the second thing is, how did the world also make that transition? So it's two in one. I would first like to start off with a quote, and maybe it's cheesy for some, but for me this quote is a very important one. You never change things by fighting the existing reality, and to change something, build a new model that makes the old one obsolete, which in my opinion is pretty appropriate given the fact that we are talking about the healthcare system, and that healthcare system right now definitely lacks some things, which is a pretty high stake given the fact that we are talking about our lives and the quality of our lives. So I will have a little bit of introduction, then I will talk a little bit about the speed of drug development, then what affects it, a little bit about the DeSci ecosystem, which is something that also Josh touched on, some examples of the DAOs, some of them also Josh mentioned, but I think I will go into a little bit more details, and also from my own personal perspective and generally why DAOs can be a good step into the future. So this is a little bit about me. I have been working at IC Research company, which I mentioned briefly before, at Bitstamp, one of the biggest crypto exchanges in the world, and at Novartis, where I'm currently employed, not actually as a bioresearcher, but as a quality control. I'm part of the quality control team there, but I also do a little bit of research outside of Novartis. Until now, I have been working a little bit with plants, testing genetic purity of proteins of the corn, of the corn strain that we mostly consume, which is Zea maize. Then I have worked here in Belgrade for a brief moment on University of Belgrade electrical engineering faculty on pH and temperature-dependent hydrogels as the drug delivery systems, which was interesting. You can, for example, bind ibuprofen to them, to those little hydrogels, and then insert it as an implant. And when, for example, you have high temperature, it just automatically releases ibuprofen, and then you can kind of have it at the same level all the time, which is pretty cool. For example, if you're diabetic, you don't have to get insulin shots all the time. Then I have been working, and currently I'm working with the University Clinic Center in Maribor and University of Maribor on discovering novel gene sequences that are related to autism-like behavior in affected children. I also have a little bit of like personal connection to the whole world of DeSci and science and medicine, and I believe that every story is a personal one, so mine is no different. My aunt is mentally retarded. She's literally at the age of like 6 mentally. You can see her like scrolling color books and everything. And I've been growing up with her, and I have had like childlike brother, like sister connection with her. And then like she got left at that level, and I kind of grew up to pursue life. So that was one of the reasons why I ended up in medicine and connecting fields. The other one was that I lost 5 family members to cancer. My future doesn't look very good. and also, one of my best friends has ulcerative colitis. He doesn't have colon at all, so he got like 14 surgeries. He was in a coma. He barely survived, etc., etc. And also, one of my good friends as well has like pretty strong pain levels every month for like 4 to 10 days, and all of those pain levels have been just attributed to menstrual symptoms. Meanwhile, for 10 years, she's receiving shots, going to the hospital, and she hasn't received appropriate health care. And I think those are some of the issues that can be addressed in the future, and some of the DAOs are accidentally also working on some of those issues, so I'm happy about that. I will have like a few questions now to raise the hand if you know anyone who has had Parkinson's disease or has currently. We have 3, okay. Depression, okay. Migraines, Alzheimer's, asthma, cancer, polycystic ovary syndrome, that means like polycystic janice na srpskom. Okay. Chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, anything that causes problems with the lungs, usually is caused by smoking. Okay. Endometriosis, chronic kidney disease, maybe somebody needing a dialysis or something, dialysis. Okay. So a lot of us know a lot of people that have those diseases or problems. And you can see that, for example, a little bit for the, let's say, last 3 to 4 ones, the number of hands that you all raised maybe doesn't match the actual number of the people that have those diseases, because also they are not as well known as some other. So that's one of the things. And the other one, these diseases have some therapeutics with which we can manage them, but they don't have a cure. This is one disease that I wanted to touch on. It's spinal muscular atrophy, and this is the disease that affects a really small amount of population. It's 0.01 to 0.02 of the whole population %. So it did kind of get a cure. It's not cure as in it cures like 100% of your body, but it's pretty close to that. It's a genetic therapy, gene therapy, so we'll talk about that. The people that have spinal muscular atrophy have, that is, if they survive the first few years of their life, depending on the type of SMA that they get a wide array of medical symptoms. Sometimes they have trouble breathing, usually. They have scoliosis. They have definitely decreased muscle tone. Some of them, if you're following them on Instagram or anywhere, if you're curious about it, you will see that usually they wear like crop tops or not a lot of clothes. That is because it's really hard for them to even leave the hands and do stuff normally when they have clothes on. So how this works is, we can see here that if we have like a normal cell, inside of it we have a genetic sequence. Each of us has it. That's where our information is stored about how our bodies should behave. In this genetic code, we have SMN1 gene, that's a part of it, which is supposed to give out, and it's generally the instruction for the body on how to make SMN protein, which affects motor neurons, and later healthy muscle cell is the result of that. But when we have a mutated gene, it's a spot mutation. It means that only one base pair, if anybody's interested in it, only one, how do you say, like, yeah, one base pair has mutation. That means that they get little to no SMN protein production. But they did get a cure, so let's see what they have. Okay, so there are two options that we see here, Spinraza and Eversdi. Those are the medicine that they can take from time to time. Spinraza is being administered through the spine injections every few months, and Eversdi is being taken as a liquid every day. This helps people a lot. It's seen positive results in labs and outside of the labs. And also we have Zolgensma. This is a medicine that literally delivers into the cell a healthy copy of a gene. It cuts out the unhealthy one, puts the healthy one in, and then the cells replicate with the healthy gene further. That's why you have to give it to a child as soon as it's safe for it to get the injection. It's literally a one-time injection, and they then experience a small amount of symptoms during the year. It depends on how many times you let pass since the baby is born. I put this picture as an example because this is a person, like the woman that has SMA. I've been following her a little bit on Instagram. She's been using Eversdi, and she has been daily reporting how much help it has been for her, how much she can move and eat, and she couldn't eat burgers, and like with Eversdi she can, and she's pretty happy about that. And she has gotten a substantial amount of strength and managed to have like a healthy baby after that. She had to stop symptoms. She had to stop, not symptoms, medication while she has been having, while she was pregnant. But after that, she got back onto the medication. So that's pretty cool. And when we think about Zolgensma, for example, this tells us that people that have SMA today literally are possibly the last maybe generation of people that will ever feel the full extent of this illness, which is pretty amazing. Zolgensma is produced by Novartis Therapeutics. It's produced in Chicago, and it's extremely expensive for now. So how long do you think it took to develop Zolgensma? Ida, make a guess. How long do you think the development of a drug takes? 30 years. 30? Okay. Okay. 20? Okay. Pretty spot on. It did take 2 decades. But we don't count here all the research that has been done before to actually understand the disease. We only have it from like the actual proposal on the medication till the end of realization of the whole thing. I think it kicked off, Zolgensma kicked off fully and got approval in 2019. So it's very, very new. Okay. It's not cooperating? It is, okay. So we have some factors that influence the development of the treatments. So what can affect whether or not we actually get a cure for some disease? I wanted to talk to you about SMA because not a lot of people have it, but the disease is there. It's because we understand how the illness works and like what the actual cause is. It's pretty straightforward. There's a wrong specific gene, and that's it. So we managed to treat that because we knew a lot about the illness itself. The second thing is, you can see that one of the factors is definitely understanding of the disease. The second one is research funding. It's hard to get money for some disease that we don't understand how to deal with that. Nobody wants to put a lot of money and in the end get nothing as a result. So when we have, for example, first phases of trials or research on some illnesses, not a lot of those researchers for the first trial get the funding after that. So a lot of things get started, but not a lot of things get finished, and that's called the valley of death generally in pharmaceutical world and on internet. The third thing is advocacy and awareness. It's really important for us to know about the illnesses. The more we know about it, the more we notice it, the more people we know, people talk about it more. And that's very important. So I also want to mention all of that. Of course, technological advances are something that we cannot move on forward without. They make the whole process way, way easier. So if we invest in technological advances, we are definitely investing in good things. Okay, these are all the things that the DAOs can help us with. Each of them definitely deals with research funding. A lot of them are advocacy and awareness. Advocates generally, like for illnesses. They fund different research that deals with both technology and illnesses, etc. So I have pretty big faith in them. Those are some of the DAOs and the whole DeSci ecosystem. Of course, not everything is in it, but for the sake of illustration, we can see we have a lot of protocols and data. They usually deal with how to effectively store and keep data safe and transparent on the blockchain and generally. We have biotech research, which isn't actually, they are structured like normal companies, so I will not touch on them. I will mostly touch on DAOs, as we are here to learn about decentralized organizations. And these are what I personally am also most interested in. So we have a few examples here. For example, this is Genome DAO. You can order, for example, a testing kit from them. You take a sample, you send them back to them, and then they outsource who is going to read your whole genome. The company that reads your whole genome doesn't know who you are. They don't provide the name, so this is an anonymous step. Also, when they get the information back, they store your information online on a blockchain, Ethereum blockchain, but it's a cloud storage. So they call it a vault. Only you have access to it, and only you can provide the data from it. They have the wish for every single one of us to own our data and, of course, our genomic. Our whole genome is definitely only our property. So that's how we want it to stay. And they offer fair compensation for example, if you want to outsource, if you want to give the data to some company, let's say, to some research project. If they want to discover what's going on with the people that, I don't know, have certain symptoms, you recognize yourself there, you give them the access to, you don't give them the access to data actually, only the analytics of your genome gets sent to them, not the genome itself, which is also adding to the layer of protection. And you get fairly compensated for that, which means that the more you give yourself to scientific research, the more you can also benefit from it. This is generally the way they work. They also connect patients, let's say, to research groups, etc. So the people who have the data to the data consumers. Here we have Molecule. I would need a glass of water for a second. Thanks. So Molecule acts as several things. First, it acts as protocol. That means that there is a certain set of rules how the data from scientific research and the general data they have is stored. Then they act as the marketplace. They connect the people the research groups that need the funding with the people that want to give the money, which is very cool. They have funded almost 2 million in total. They have funded 12 research projects. We will talk about some of them. They also have help for the different DAOs that want to get, they literally have the DAO accelerator, which is this BioXYZ that we are going to touch on in a second. I would just, before all that, like to mention 2 projects that they are working on. One is for hair DAO. This means that they are dealing with hair regrowth, as you can see, with topical thyroid hormones. There is also Wally DAO. This is a little bit more of ecology-related project. They are dealing with microbial lipid production with synthetic biology. It's supposed to create new sources of oil and leave the plants, for example, for biofuel. So we get the oil from microbes and not the plants. This is a pretty big community. They have over 15K members, which is for DAOs that are really, really young, a lot. Then we have BioXYZ. That's this DAO accelerator. They allow you to, if you have the idea, come to them. They have 18 weeks of period throughout which they provide I don't know, strategy consulting, generally various plethora of advisory services. They also provide you with 100,000 USDC on-chain convertible grant. That is around 100,000 also dollars, but it's stored on Ethereum blockchain, but it's a stable coin, USDC, so it matches the price of the dollar. They have made VitaDAO. VitaDAO we will also touch on later, and we can see which BioDAOs are a part of BioXYZ. We have this VitaDAO that we'll mention, Athena as well, HairDAO we did mention, WallyDAO, PsyDAO, and CryoDAO. Because we will not be dealing with CryoDAO further, I would just like to, for a second, touch on that. They are dealing with cryopreservation and researching the ways in which we can store our organs, like for example, if somebody dies, as fast as possible so that we can cryopreserve them for the next use, and in that sense, help more people. We have Athena DAO. They are community of usually female scientists, but males have started to get included as well now. Their area of focus is ovarian aging, menopause, endometriosis, all of the illnesses that are usually causing problems to women. They are also part of they have a lot of incentive mechanisms. They provide funding and education to a lot of women and women illness-related projects. They are currently targeting the CGIS Think pathway to delay ovarian aging. So they want to deal with ovarian aging with various patients, and especially the patients that also have undergone chemotherapy so that they will have the chance to conceive later, for example. This is happening in Spain, and whole Athena DAO community, not the community, but the center of Athena DAO is also placed in Spain. They have the community hub. They are also doing research, sourcing, and funding. They are part of the advocacy, which we also mentioned is very, very important generally for how fast we get therapeutics. Then we have VitaDAO. They are from the whole longevity story. If you are maybe interested in it, you have probably heard about it. They help people live longer, healthier lives. They managed to fund 2.5 million worth of research, which is a lot for the generally new way of existing, like new organizations. Then they have 20 research projects funded, and I will mention just 3 of them. They are trying to see if the medication that we take on a daily basis prolongs our aging already, like prolongs our lives, actually. Does it affect the aging process? Then there are a lot of, there is research being done on Alzheimer's disease, whether or not the mitochondria inside our cell that isn't producing energy in the right way, that isn't working in the right way, is getting kicked out of the cell, actually, or it's staying there, causing more problems. And then we have brain tissue replacement, which is pretty interesting. They are replacing brain part by part without changing and people don't get the symptoms of having their personality changed or anything. So that's pretty impressive, in my opinion. And we have PsyDAO. They are funding the research of psychedelic use for mental illnesses and similar things. You have probably heard about it. This is something that has been a bit of a controversial topic, but as far as we have gotten with, yeah.
Probably doing a conference in December, so if anyone's interested.
True. So it holds a lot of potential. They are funding early stage commercializable projects, and they also offer microfunds for young researchers and students, which is also very cool. They are not as money funded, as money rich as other DAOs, but they are doing pretty well. So why DAOs? Generally, I love the way they work because they bring all the people from around the world. The globalization allows us that stand around the same cause. They don't do it for money. Usually they do it because there's not a lot of money in DAOs yet. They do it because they care about the cause, and that's something that can accelerate the production of the drugs long term. They're transparent. On blockchain, things are usually pretty easy to track. We can see all transactions. We can see where the data is stored. So that's something that sometimes lags with the standard companies because they guard their data. Usually here, we are trying to have the data as open and available as possible for other people to use. Then we have collaboration between people and the motives, which are the two topics that I already touched on. We have independency. They are not dependent on government funding, and they can get funded from all over the world, which is pretty cool. We have innovation, whatever new you want to try. If you get the funding for it, you can. And the structure, that's something new that we are seeing right now. Will decentralization actually work or not? Long term, we don't know yet, but the prospects are pretty good. I think Molecule got also funding from Pfizer, if I remember correctly, so that's a pretty big step forward. It's a good confirmation that we are going in the right direction. So yeah, I think that we see that technology is going forward, the DAOs are going forward. We have seen that once we move to more effective systems, that we rarely go back to the old ones that are less effective. So I think that this technology is here to stay. It's not going anywhere. It's only the question of whether or not we are going to accept it and use it for generally the good of humanity. So that's it.
Any questions?
Yeah, if there are any questions, just feel free. Okay. It's yours.
Thank you. I'm not a scientist yet, but I still read a lot of scientific papers, and that wouldn't be possible, A, if there wasn't an internet, and B, if there wasn't this thing called open access, where people actually decide to freely share their scientific papers. And that's the intellectual tradition that I really, really like. I'm also an activist and entrepreneur, so I'm not a scientist. And I'm a traumatized activist, and the reason for that is because I did spend some time doing political activism in Serbia, so I was depressed for like a few years, but now I'm only doing tech activism, which is like a much cooler thing, and it does make sense. I'm going to talk about opportunities, concrete ones in DeSci, as practical and concrete as possible. And then I'll talk about the DeSci Belgrade and what I do plan to do here in Serbia. So how many of you here are actual scientists? We have one. Developers? Okay. Entrepreneurs? And other, but curious, like generalists. Yeah, Tanya spoke a lot about these bio DAOs. Like, I like the phrase like new science organizations because they actually are a new type of organizations. Like these organizations did not exist before, and she already spoke about many of them, so I'll not spend the time on that. Like I'll just like add two interesting points. They're global first, and if you come from Serbia or Azerbaijan or some other, like, let's not call it third world country, but like country which is like, there's not enough funding for scientists, you can become part of the global tribe and you can get funding from the internet, which is like a great thing for you as a scientist. So basically, if you're a researcher or a scientist, you can easily get funding for your research from these DAOs in Serbia, and not from Ministry of Science and Technology from Serbia. I don't have anything against them, but you can get like 5 times more and 5 times faster. And not just that, because these DAOs are also like communities, and basically you can meet like-minded people from literally all over the world. Meaning, you join a Discord server, and there's like 1,000 people, there are like 50 people from Japan who share your passion, and you can actually get money pretty fast and get support in your actually scientific endeavors. That's something that just wasn't possible before. And I think that we're just starting to see this happening. And the second thing, it's so much faster. So one of the big problems in funding science in general is that it's too slow. Meaning, like, researchers and scientists spend months and months preparing their research proposals, and that methodology just sucks. And with this DAOs, people are trying to invent new, faster ways to actually distribute funding, which is especially interesting for some scientific research that is actually smaller in scale. So if you need like 3 or 5K to do a survey, why wait for like two years? Especially because let's say that there's like COVID happening and you need money fast because you need to do research fast, and these organizations are actually inventing new ways to give you that money so much faster. So these DAOs are a global first, which is like access to funding even if you're from Serbia, and they're so much faster. Molecule is like the biggest organization and probably the most important one. They act as a platform for like many of these different DAOs, and they do so by creating some of their own tech. So one of the cool things they did are these IP NFTs, which basically means that like when you get funding, IP is done as an NFT, which I'm not an IP lawyer, but we had this guy, Chris, and I'll send you the link if you're interested in like specifically IP NFTs. But it's actually so much more efficient because IP in science is like such a big thing. And they basically created this piece of tech that actually serve as an IP platform. And all of these platforms, all of these DAOs, when they actually give you money, IP is written as NFT, and that's why they act as a platform. And they act as a platform. It's interesting how they developed. I was in Berlin last month, and I was in Berlin a year ago. A year ago, there was just like 3 of these DAOs, and now there are like 10 of them, and now they're becoming a platform, meaning if any of you want to start like a DAO that is focused on anything specific in science, you can hypothetically use Molecule as a platform to do so. And here you can see their treasuries. So Vita DAO, I'm promoting them. They have the biggest one, so it's 11 million. Psi DAO, like the psychedelic one, 100K. Athena DAO, like 200K. And these things are still becoming hot. As in, like last year it was probably like 5 million, now it's 30. You could easily imagine a future where like hundreds of millions are going to be distributed this way, either by some of these organizations or some new. So basically, people are just experimenting. And this year in Berlin, I was really interested to hear from the guy from Pfizer who actually invested in Molecule to like understand why he did that. And his reasoning was actually very obvious, if you think about it, because these DAOs, they're actually like 100 or 200 or 300 very passionate researchers who come together and share their experiences and work together online. From him, as a pharma company, he needs access to these people. And what they're actually bought in was like access to these people and their experience, because like you have 300 people working on the same cause versus you have like random people all over the world. And they basically get the access through this investing. And that was like a big signal. But like he was also telling all of us that actually it's one big experiment, as in like this is just one big experiment, and what will happen, like no one knows. But these things are actually happening, and they're pretty interesting to see. So yet again, as a scientist, this is the guy who runs Coinbase, but he's also a DeSci founder, and I didn't know that. And his DeSci startup is called Research Hub. And as a researcher or a scientist, you can go there. They raised, I think, 5 million June last year. And basically, you can go there and actually contribute to their ongoing research and get rewarded in tokens. So basically, what they're doing is like they're trying to tokenize contributions you can make to different existing research projects that are listed on the platform. So as a scientist, you can A, get money, and B, you can get rewarded. This is just one example. It's like, yet again, super early, but there are some other platforms like that. So as a scientist, you can just like log in, find a research paper, comment on it, and get rewarded. That's something new, and crypto is being used for that use case. As a developer, you can find work. Josh, they have this dashboard. This is the address. 87 projects that are listed there. They're categorized in different categories: publishing, financing, data, big pharma, and whatnot. So as a developer, you can decide to contribute to some of these projects, like by either doing that because you think that's important, or by actually finding work, or doing that on a part-time basis. So that's an opportunity for you as a developer. You can also get some R&D funding from these ecosystems. So far, I've identified these as the ones who are actually identifying DeSci as something of interest. Ethereum, Vitalik is like a DeSci guy, and Ethereum Foundation is, I think, giving 30 million a year in total. Their treasury is 1.5 billion. And if you have like an R&D idea, you can probably think of applying to them for some funding. Filecoin is also pretty big on this because their founder is like a DeSci guy at its core, and he's actually funding a lot of this stuff. I mean, Filecoin is also like market cap of few billion, and actually I think Ethereum and Filecoin are pushing this. If you go to Ethereum Foundation's website, there are 4 areas of their interest, and DeSci is listed as one of them. Also, I don't know if anyone of you has visited Zuzalu, it's like a DeSci experiment of some sort, basically, like people, interesting scientists doing crazy stuff and hanging out and whatnot. But the point is, like, there's an interest in that ecosystem, and there's some funding. Ocean, I don't know if anyone has an experience with Ocean protocol. Me neither, unfortunately. But I found that a lot of DeSci projects are actually using Ocean. Ocean is all about data, as in like monetizing data in different ways. And it seems that like that's one of the great use cases for DeSci. And they also do grants. You can get a grant there. And Arviv, they also do grants all the time. It's like a permanent storage, decentralized storage solution, somewhat different than Filecoin. But you can also get a grant there. And when I say grant, like that's probably in the range of like 20 to like 50, 60K. So if you have any ideas on what to do in the DeSci space, you can probably think of applying to some of these grant options, which is cool, I think. Some of the more concrete things. Anyone working anything in Filecoin ecosystem? They launched this thing called Filecoin Virtual Machine, which gives you an opportunity to write smart contracts directly there. And they're pushing this thing called data DAOs. And actually, they're inviting people to start building something in that domain and actually providing funding for that. So you could probably think of, like, I don't know, going for 50 or 60K R&D grant there. The idea of Data DAO is like these decentralized organizations, but imagine not people, but data. So imagine like all of us pooling data in this DAO, and then that DAO would like track whose data is being used in which way, and then you can get rewarded. So it's like pretty abstract as a concept, but it's okay because it's pretty abstract for them as well. And that's why you can get some R&D money to do that. Like we're actually trying to, Nicola and we're trying to explore that soon, hopefully. We're just like trying to figure out what can be built. The very interesting domain, like, and this is not me speaking, but rather some VCs that I met in Berlin. It's like the big thing is like personal data monetization. Like, how do you monetize your personal data? Because all of us have like, a lot of personal data, and the question is like, how can some scientists use that, like, to train their algorithms or do an actual science, and how can we get rewarded for providing that data? And your example, the Genomes DAO, is a perfect one, but that's just like one thing. And if I understood well, like this probably can be like really big, as in like you can probably build a unicorn in that domain. But everyone like kind of understand it's very interesting. So if you want to do something, you can probably like think of something to do there. The thing with like using decentralized storage for personal data is it's complicated from the legal and compliance perspective because, like, for example, there's this thing called GDPR. And it's very complicated to store data in a decentralized fashion and be legally compliant. However, there are some technical tricks you can use to do that, and some teams and people are actually trying to solve this. So that's also something interesting from an R&D perspective. And the thing is, like, that's something we in Serbia, I think, don't kind of get, is that science is actually big bucks. Like, there's a lot of money in science, and science is an industry. And science as an industry, like, I was trying to calculate like the whole total addressable market, but like I'm still trying to calculate. I was speaking with Josh, trying to help him like do the market sizing, and I couldn't. But here are some data points. So just academic publishing is 90 billion a year, and that's a lot of money. Then data markets, probably tens of billions every year. Science and research orgs, so many billions. So for example, imagine every university is like some sort of science organization. hypothetically, you can imagine all of that being decentralized. Science funding, tens of billions. Very interesting one, this thing called tech transfer and commercializing research through IPs, I don't know how much. But like, this is how big of a market it is, and that's why, okay. That's why a lot of VCs are interested in this field, because there's a lot of money to be made. And a lot of very prominent VCs are actually searching for DeSci startups. And what I'm trying to say is, like, if you have any idea in this domain, you could probably pursue it. And it's cool because it's super early and the competition is still low. What's also interesting that, like, industry titans, this is the Protocol Labs founder, a DeSci guy. This is Vitalik, a DeSci guy. This is the Coinbase guy, a DeSci guy. And this is the craziest one, Balaji, like a DeSci guy. And they're like very influential, and their thoughts are being used by other people as well. But what's also interesting is that they all do angel investing as well. So what I'm trying to say, if you have any cool idea, you can just probably shoot a direct email to Balaji and you can probably get some funding, because all of them actually believe in decentralized science and want to fund it. They have a lot of money. And it's still super early, so we'll see. It's like a very big experiment. Also, if you want to do any startup, like you can probably do it through grants. Ocean Protocol in the realm of data economy and monetization. Arviv, something about data and storage. Filecoin, data and storage. Ethereum, basically everything. And I would probably assume that you could probably go for like 100 to 100K range for these grants. And my strategy would be do the grant, prove something, and then go ways from reseeds. More about DeSci Belgrade, I created this website, and there you can find the link to the Telegram group. So I'm inviting you to the Telegram group because I'm launching officially this Telegram group. And the idea is just to explore this together. And when I say explore this together, like to have like a chat where we can exchange ideas and maybe do meetups every month with like the focus on different topics. So that's the idea. So far, we did this conference in June. It was me with Josh. It was during ETH Belgrade. We're probably going to do that next year as well. But for the future, we plan to do like meetups like this, maybe some sort of initiatives. For example, what comes to mind first is like scientists in Serbia don't have a clue that they can get crypto money. Why not like just do that as a campaign? So that's an obvious thing, and I'm intending to do that next. And ideally, like, let's build something together. So if anyone has any idea, we can discuss it, idea it, and work on that, because I think that there's a lot of potential. It could also make sense to do like a hackathon or something like that sometime in the future. There will be also that we can just hang out now and chat. So that's all for me. Thank you. And this is a cool slide to have it. To stay on, yeah. Možda se prebacimo, sam još na video?